Listen and listen carefully, because something inside you already knows this is not just another message. This is not something you randomly clicked. This is not just another video passing through your screen while you scroll without thinking. No, something stopped you. Something pulled you in. Something whispered, "Pay attention, this is different." And that feeling you have right now, that slight tension in your chest, that curiosity mixed with urgency, that is not coincidence. That is not emotion. That is recognition. Because in this very moment, heaven is interrupting your routine. Yes, interrupting you. You are going about your day, thinking about your responsibilities, carrying your stress, managing your problems, maybe even feeling a little lost, a little tired, a little unsure about what's next. And suddenly here you are. Why? Why now? Why this message? Why this title? Because God is not random. God is precise. And when He interrupts your normal flow, it is never casual. It is always critical. There are moments in life when everything feels ordinary, and then there are moments when heaven steps in and says, "Stop. Look at me. Listen to me. This is important." This is one of those moments. You may not fully understand it yet, but something has been building behind the scenes of your life. Something has been aligning. Conversations, delays, frustrations, closed doors, strange feelings you couldn't explain, all of it has been leading to this exact point. And deep down, you felt it, haven't you? That something is about to shift. That something isn't right. That something is coming. You tried to ignore it. You tried to brush it off. You told yourself, "Maybe I'm overthinking." But the feeling didn't go away. It kept returning, in quiet moments, late at night. You random thoughts that seemed to come out of nowhere. That was not anxiety. That was not imagination. That was God trying to get your attention. Because there is a timing attached to your life that you cannot afford to miss. And here is the truth most people don't realize until it's too late. Not every opportunity comes back. Not every moment repeats. Not every divine window stays open forever. Some moments are appointed, and when they arrive, they demand a response. Right now, you are standing in one of those moments. This is why the message feels urgent. This is why it feels personal. This is why it feels like it's speaking directly to you, even though there are thousands of others who could hear the same words. Because this is not for everyone. This is for the one who was meant to stop scrolling. This is for the one whose spirit is still sensitive enough to recognize when God is speaking. This is for the one who has been searching, questioning, waiting, and is now being called. You didn't find this message. This message found you. And if you ignore it, if you treat it like background noise, if you say, "I'll come back to this later," you may walk away from something that was meant to change everything. Not tomorrow. Not next week. Now. Because God does not always shout. Sometimes He interrupts. Sometimes He places something directly in front of you and waits to see, will you pay attention or will you pass it by like every other distraction? And today, He is watching your response. Will you lean in, or will you look away? Because what comes next is not just information. It is instruction. It is warning. It is alignment. And it carries a weight that your future depends on. So don't write this moment. Don't treat this lightly. Because the fact that you are here right now reading these words means something greater than you realize has already begun. And this is only the beginning. Type "I am listening" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 717 is now activated around your life. Now listen closely, because what you are about to hear is not symbolic, it is not poetic, and it is not something you should take lightly. There is a date, yes, a specific moment in time, that has already been marked in the spiritual realm concerning your life. Long before you woke up today, long before you even became aware of this message, heaven had already circled this moment with intention. This is not a date created by man. This is not something driven by calendars or routines. This is a divine appointment, written into your timeline with precision, carrying consequences if ignored and transformation if obeyed. You may be wondering, what is so special about a date? But that question reveals something deeper, because most people live their lives thinking time is neutral. They believe days pass randomly, weeks blur together, and nothing truly significant is tied to a specific moment. But heaven does not operate that way. God moves in appointed times, in seasons, in divine alignments that carry weight. And when those moments arrive, they are not suggestions, they are invitations that demand awareness. You are stepping into one of those moments now, whether you fully understand it yet or not. There has been a countdown in the spirit that you could not see. While you were focused on your daily responsibilities, something was shifting behind the scenes. Doors were being prepared. Decisions were being aligned. Even resistance you've been facing lately was not random. It was connected to this exact moment approaching. That heaviness you felt, that confusion, that sense that something was about to change but you couldn't explain how, it was all pointing to this prophetic date drawing near. This is why everything feels intensified right now. This is why your emotions may have been fluctuating. This is why distractions have been increasing. Because when a divine moment approaches, there is always movement, both from heaven and from opposition. One is trying to align you. The other is trying to delay you. And the truth is, if you are not aware of the timing, you can easily miss the significance of what is happening right in front of you. God is saying to you now, my child, this date is not ordinary. This moment is not casual. This is a turning point. And turning points do not announce themselves loudly. They often appear quietly, disguised as just another day. But what separates those who step into destiny from those who remain stuck is not luck. It is recognition. It is the ability to sense when God is moving and respond accordingly. There is something that must shift in you during this time. Something that must be released. Something that must be acknowledged. This is not about fear, and it is not about pressure. It is about alignment. Because if you align with what God is doing in this moment, things that have been delayed can suddenly accelerate. Clarity can replace confusion. Peace can replace tension. Direction can replace wandering. But if you ignore it, if you treat it like nothing, if you allow distraction to pull you away, then what was meant to elevate you can instead pass you by. And here is the part you must understand deeply. This is not about punishment. God is not waiting to take something from you. But timing matters. There are moments when heaven opens a door that requires your participation. If you hesitate, the door does not force itself open. It waits. And sometimes, if ignored long enough, it closes, not forever, but for that season. You have already seen glimpses of this in your life before. Moments where you felt you should have acted, but you delayed. Opportunities where something inside you said, "This is important," but you dismissed it. And later, you realized that moment mattered more than you thought. This is not one of those moments you can afford to overlook again. God is drawing your attention to this prophetic time because your life is at a point of transition. You are not where you used to be, but you are not fully where you are meant to be either. You are in between, and this date is the bridge. What you do now will determine which direction you move in next. Forward into alignment or backward into repetition. So do not treat this as just words. Do not let your mind convince you this is general or vague. This is specific to your spirit. This is a call to awareness. A call to wake up and recognize that something sacred has been placed before you. Because what is coming next will reveal why this moment carries such urgency and what happens if it is ignored. Type "I am aligned" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1122 is now activated. Now hear this with absolute clarity, because this is where the message shifts from awareness into warning. God is not whispering anymore. He is speaking directly to your spirit, and his voice carries urgency because what is at stake is not small. This is not about a minor decision. This is not about something you can casually delay and revisit later. This is about a moment that holds weight over your direction, your peace, and your future alignment. And if you ignore this call, there will be consequences, not as punishment, but as a result of disconnection from what was meant to guide you forward. You must understand something that many people fail to grasp until it is too late. When God calls your attention to something specific, and you choose to ignore it, you are not just staying still, you are stepping out of alignment. And the danger of misalignment is subtle. It does not always show up immediately. It does not always feel dramatic in the beginning. In fact, at first, everything may seem normal. You may go back to your routine. You may distract yourself. You may convince yourself that nothing was really happening. But slowly, quietly, things begin to shift. Clarity becomes confusion. Peace becomes restlessness. Opportunities begin to feel delayed. Doors that once felt closed suddenly feel distant. And you won't always connect it back to the moment you ignored, but in the spirit, everything is connected. Because when a divine moment is presented to you, it carries instruction within it. And if that instruction is not received, the next step cannot fully unfold the way it was designed to. God is saying to you right now, my child, I am not trying to scare you, I am trying to prepare you. There is something ahead that requires your awareness now. There is something that requires your attention, your stillness, your willingness to listen and respond. And if you move forward without that alignment, you may find yourself repeating cycles you were meant to break in this very season. Think about it. How many times have you felt like you were moving forward, only to find yourself back in the same situation again? The same emotional patterns, the same types of setbacks, the same confusion returning in a different form. That is not coincidence. That is what happens when moments of alignment are missed. This is why the warning feels strong. Because this moment is not just another opportunity, it is a correction point. A moment designed to shift your direction so you do not continue down a path that leads to delay, frustration, and unnecessary struggle. If you ignore this, you risk carrying forward things that were meant to be released right now. You risk staying connected to distractions that were meant to be exposed. You risk missing clarity that would have saved you time, energy, and emotional weight. And perhaps the most important part, you risk delaying something that has already been prepared for you. God has already positioned something ahead of you. But alignment is the key that unlocks it. And ignoring this moment closes that access, at least for now. Not forever, but long enough to feel the weight of delay. This is why you cannot treat this lightly. This is why you cannot say, I'll come back to this later. Because later is where many destinies get postponed. Later is where clarity fades. Later is where distractions take over. And later is where regret begins to form when you realize you felt something important and chose to overlook it. God is not asking you for perfection. He is asking you for attention. He is asking you to pause, to listen, to reflect, to recognize that this moment has been placed in front of you for a reason. Because if you respond now, you step into alignment. But if you ignore it, you step into delay. And the difference between those two paths is not small. It is the difference between moving forward with clarity or continuing to move in circles. So the question is not whether this moment matters. The question is whether you will recognize that it does. Because what comes next will reveal why the battle around you has been intensifying and what is actively trying to pull you away from this exact moment. Type "I will not ignore this" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1313 is now activated. As this truth settles into your spirit, understand this: every time a message like this reaches someone at the exact moment they need it, heaven is touching a life that was on the edge of missing its turning point. And when you choose to support this mission, you are not helping a channel. You are helping that moment reach another soul who is still wandering in confusion. The word says, "Cast your bread upon the waters, for you will find it after many days." And right now, your giving becomes a seed that travels farther than you can see, touching hearts you may never meet. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to act, not out of obligation, but out of obedience. When you release through Super Thanks with a PayPal link in the description, you are stepping into a divine flow where your seed becomes light in someone else's darkness. This is not just support. It is participation in God's work moving across lives in real time. And as you give, I declare that what you release will return to you multiplied, opened, and aligned with your season. To act now. Step into this moment and sow with purpose. Now pay attention, because what you have been experiencing lately is not random, and it is not just life being busy or overwhelming. There is a battle happening, and it is centered on one thing: your attention. You may have noticed it without fully understanding it. The sudden urge to scroll endlessly without purpose. A constant pull toward things that don't actually matter. The way your focus slips when you try to be still. The way your mind feels crowded, like there are too many thoughts, too many distractions, too many things competing for your energy all at once. That is not coincidence. That is not just modern life. That is strategy. Because the enemy does not always need to destroy you to delay you. Sometimes, all that is required is distraction. If your attention can be pulled away at the right moment, then alignment can be missed without you even realizing it. And right now, at this exact point in your life, your attention has become a target. Not because you are weak, but because you are close to something that requires your awareness. You are near a shift. You are near clarity. You are near a decision that carries weight. And because of that, the pressure to distract you has increased. Think about the last few days. The interruptions that seemed small but kept adding up. The moments where you intended to focus, but something pulled you away. The way time seemed to slip faster than usual. The way you felt busy, yet not truly productive. That is how distraction works. It does not always appear harmful. It often feels normal. But its purpose is precise: to keep you from recognizing what matters most. God is saying to you now, my child, guard your attention, because what you focus on in this moment will determine what you step into next. This is why the battle feels internal. It is not always external chaos. It is internal noise. It is the inability to settle. The resistance to stillness. Because stillness is where clarity comes. And clarity is what leads to alignment. So if stillness can be avoided, then clarity can be delayed. And this is exactly what has been happening. You have been pulled into movement without meaning. Activity without direction. thoughts without grounding. And slowly, it creates distance between you and the very awareness you need right now. Not a dramatic distance, but enough to blur your discernment. That is why this message is interrupting you again. Because God is pulling your attention back. He is saying, stop letting everything else take priority over what I am trying to show you. There is a reason this moment requires focus. There is a reason you are being asked to slow down, to listen, to become aware. Because what is coming next in your life is not something you can step into blindly. It requires intention. It requires clarity. It requires you to actually see what is in front of you. But distraction keeps you from seeing. It fills your time so you do not reflect. It fills your mind so you do not discern. It fills your energy so you do not respond. And the danger is not just missing a moment, it is misinterpreting it. When you are distracted, you can overlook what is important and give attention to what is not. You can invest energy in the wrong direction. You can respond emotionally instead of spiritually. And before you realize it, you have moved past a moment that was meant to guide you. This is why you must take this seriously. Because the increase in distraction is not a sign to give in. It is a sign that something important is near. You do not need to fight everything around you. You need to discipline what you allow your attention to rest on. You need to choose what you engage with. You need to recognize when something is pulling you away from stillness and ask yourself why. Because not everything that demands your attention deserves it. And right now, your attention is valuable. It is the gateway to your alignment. If you can focus, you will see clearly. If you can be still, you will understand what God is revealing. If you can resist distraction, you will not miss what hath been prepared for you. But if you continue to allow your attention to be scattered, then even the clearest signs can pass by unnoticed. God is not asking you to do more. He is asking you to focus more, to become aware, to recognize that this moment is not like others. Because what comes next will begin to reveal patterns in your life that were never meant to continue and why this moment is positioned to break them. Type "I focus" now in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 2222 is now activated around your mind and spirit. And now listen carefully, because what you are about to recognize may shift the way you see your entire life up to this point. This is not just about a moment. This is not just about a date. This is about a pattern, a cycle that has been repeating itself in ways you may not have fully understood until now. Think back not just to yesterday or last week, but further. Think about the times you felt like you were finally moving forward, finally gaining clarity, finally stepping into something new, only for something to interrupt it. Something subtle. Something that didn't completely stop you, but slowed you down just enough to change your direction. And before you knew it, you found yourself back in a place that felt familiar, a place you thought you had already outgrown. That is the pattern. It does not always look like failure. It often looks like almost making it, almost breaking through, almost becoming who you felt you were meant to be. And almost is one of the most dangerous places to live in, because it creates the illusion of progress without the reality of transformation. God is saying to you now, my child, this cycle was never meant to continue this long. There are patterns in your life that were supposed to end in an earlier season, but because certain moments of alignment were missed, they carried forward. Not because you are incapable, not because you are unworthy, but because cycles do not break automatically. They break when awareness meets action. And this is where you are now. A point of awareness. You are beginning to see that certain things are not random. The emotional loops, The repeated frustrations, the same types of challenges appearing in different forms, the feeling of starting over in areas where you should already feel established. These are not isolated experiences. They are connected, and the connection is the pattern. This is why this prophetic moment matters so much, because it is not just about moving forward. It is about finally breaking what has been repeating. There is something in your life that hath been waiting for you to recognize it fully, not partially, not vaguely, but clearly, because clarity is what gives you the power to respond differently. Until now, you may have responded the same way each time the cycle appeared. Maybe you ignored it. Maybe you pushed through it. Maybe you told yourself it would pass on its own. But cycles do not break through avoidance. They break through intentional change. And that change begins with recognition. God is bringing this to your attention now because this is the moment where the pattern can end. But it will not end automatically. It will end when you decide to no longer move the same way when the pattern tries to repeat itself. This requires honesty with yourself. It requires you to see where you have allowed certain things to continue longer than they should have, where you have settled into familiar discomfort instead of stepping into unfamiliar growth, where you have delayed decisions that needed to be made. Because delay feeds cycles, and cycles thrive on hesitation. This is why the urgency of this message is so strong. Because if you recognize the pattern and still choose to move the same way, then the cycle will continue. Not because it is meant to, but because it is allowed to. But if you recognize it and respond differently, if you choose alignment over habit, clarity over comfort, awareness over distraction, then something powerful happens. The cycle breaks. And when a cycle breaks, it does not just change one moment. It changes everything that comes after it. Because suddenly, you are no longer repeating, you are progressing. You are no longer circling, you are advancing. You are no longer reacting, you are choosing. This is the shift that has been waiting for you. This is why this moment is so important. Because you are not being asked to do something complicated. You are being asked to do something intentional. To see clearly. To respond differently. To no longer allow what has been repeating to continue without question. God is not bringing this up to remind you of the past. He is bringing it up to release you from it. But release requires participation. You must decide that this is where it ends. That this is where the pattern loses its hold. That this is where you stop moving in the same direction when the same situation appears. Because what comes next in your life cannot coexist with the cycles of your past. There is no room for repetition where transformation is required. And this moment, this prophetic moment, is the doorway between those two realities. So the question is no longer whether the pattern exists. The question is whether you are ready to end it. Because what comes next will reveal how God has already been speaking to you even in the moments you thought were silent. Type "the cycle ends with me" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 3333 is now activated around your life. Now slow down because this part requires honesty, not just listening. God has been speaking to you long before this moment. Not just now, not just through this message, but in ways that were quiet, subtle, and easy to overlook if you were not fully paying attention. And the truth is you have heard him before. You just didn't always recognize it for what it was. There were moments when something inside you said, "Don't do that." And you couldn't explain why. It didn't make logical sense. It didn't align with what others were saying. But it was there, that quiet inner knowing. That hesitation that came without fear but with clarity. And yet, you moved forward anyway, convincing yourself it was nothing. There were moments when you felt strongly pulled in a certain direction. A decision, a change, a step that felt uncomfortable but necessary. And for a moment, you considered it. You felt it deeply. But then doubt stepped in. You delayed. You told yourself, "I'll think about it later." And later never came. That was not coincidence. That was not emotion. That was God speaking. But His voice does not always come loudly. It comes in impressions, in nudges, in repeated thoughts that carry a weight different from normal thinking, in moments of stillness where clarity appears without effort. And because it is not loud, it is often ignored. God is saying to you now, my child, you have not been without direction. You have been overlooking it. That may be difficult to accept at first, because it is easier to believe that nothing was clear, that you were confused, that you didn't know what to do. But if you look closely, you will see that clarity did come. It just did not come in the way you expected. You were looking for certainty. God was giving you awareness. You were waiting for confirmation from the outside. God was speaking from within. And in the disconnect, moments were missed. This is why certain things in your life felt harder than they needed to be. Not because you were meant to struggle, but because guidance was present, and it was not followed. Not out of rebellion, but out of hesitation, doubt, and distraction. And now, you are being brought back to that awareness. Not to regret what has passed, but to recognize how God communicates with you. Because if you do not recognize His voice, you will continue to overlook it, even when it becomes more urgent. Think about the patterns again. How many times did you feel something early but acted later? How many times did you sense something was off but ignored it until it became obvious? How many times did you delay a decision that you already knew the answer to deep down? That is the voice you've been ignoring. And it is not distant. It is not separate from you. It is already within your awareness. But it requires trust, because it does not always come with full explanation. It comes with direction first and understanding later. This is where many people struggle. They want to understand before they move. But God often asks you to move so you can understand. And when you resist that process, you remain in place longer than necessary. God is not asking you to blindly follow anything. He is asking you to recognize the difference between distraction and direction. Distraction feels scattered. Direction feels clear, even if it is uncomfortable. Distraction pulls you in multiple directions. Direction pulls you in one, consistently. Distraction creates noise. Direction brings a quiet certainty that does not need to be forced. You have felt that certainty before, even recently, even leading up to this moment. That is why this message resonates, because it is not introducing something new. It is confirming something you already sensed. God is not starting a conversation with you right now. He's continuing one. And the question is, will you finally respond? Because what comes next will not just require you to hear His voice. It will require you to act on it without delay. And if you continue to ignore what you already know, then even the clearest guidance will not move you forward. But if you recognize it, if you trust it, if you respond to it, then everything begins to change. Because clarity has already been given. Now it is time to follow it. Type "I hear His voice" in the comments if you receive this message. Lesson code 4444 is now activated around your spirit. And now listen with full awareness, because this is where everything begins to tighten, everything begins to narrow, and everything begins to make sense. There is a window open over your life right now. Not a physical window, not something you can see with your eyes, but a spiritual opening, an alignment of timing, awareness, and opportunity that has been prepared specifically for you. And like all windows, it is not meant to stay open forever. This is what many people fail to understand about divine timing. They believe that if something is meant for them, it will simply happen no matter what. That they can delay, ignore, postpone, and still arrive at the same outcome. But that is not how alignment works. God's promises remain, but the timing of when you step into them can shift based on your response. And right now, you are standing in a moment where timing is everything. This is not just about what you do. It is about when you do it. Because the same action taken at the wrong time does not carry the same power as the right action taken at the appointed moment. That is what makes this so serious. Because what is available to you right now may not be available in the same way later. God is saying to you, my child, I have opened something before you, but you must recognize it while it is still open. You may not see it clearly yet. It may not look like a dramatic opportunity. It may not come with a loud announcement. In fact, it may feel subtle, like a shift in your awareness, a pull towards something, a realization that something needs to change now, not later. That is the window. It is not always external. It is often internal. It is the moment where everything aligns just enough for you to act. And if you hesitate, if you delay, if you tell yourself you will come back to it later, the moment passes. Not because it was taken from you, but because it was not received. You have experienced this before. Moments where you felt something strongly, but did not act. Moments where you knew something needed to change, but you postponed it. Moments where you felt clarity, but allowed doubt to override it. And later, you realized that something had shifted. The same feeling was not there. The same urgency was gone. The same clarity had faded. That is what happens when a window closes. And now, you are being brought into another one. But this time, you are aware. This time, you are being told directly. This time, you cannot say you did not recognize it. Because this is not just about opportunity. It is about alignment with your next level. There are things prepared for you that cannot be accessed from where you are currently standing. Not because you are unworthy, but because they require a shift first. And that shift is tied to this moment. God is not asking you to do everything at once. He is asking you to respond now. To take the step that is in front of you. To act on the clarity you already have. Because that step is what moves you into the next position. And from that position, everything else begins to unfold. But if you do not take that step, you remain where you are. And what was meant to unfold next waits. This is why timing matters so much. Because delay does not always look like failure. Sometimes, it looks like staying in the same place longer than necessary. Repeating the same thoughts. Facing the same situations. Feeling the same frustration of knowing something should have changed by now. And not understanding why it hasn't. But the reason traces back to a moment like this. A moment where action was required and it was postponed. God is bringing this to your attention now because He does not want you to miss this window. He does not want you to look back later and realize you were closer than you thought but did not move. This is not about pressure. It is about awareness. Because when you are aware, you can respond. And when you respond, you align. And when you align, things begin to move in ways that feel natural, not forced. Doors begin to open. Clarity becomes consistent. Peace replaces hesitation. But it all begins with recognizing the timing and responding within it. So do not treat this moment as something you can revisit later. Do not assume it will feel the same tomorrow. Because what you feel right now, this clarity, this pull, this awareness is part of the window itself. And it is inviting you to move. Because what comes next will reveal what is actively trying to stop you from stepping through it. Type "I step into my time" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 5555 is now activated around your path. Now stay with this, because what you are about to understand will explain the resistance you've been feeling. There is a reason everything has felt heavier right when you started becoming more aware. There is a reason confusion increased right when clarity was getting closer. There is a reason distractions intensified right when you needed focus the most. This is not coincidence. This is strategy. Because whenever you approach a moment of alignment, whenever you come close to stepping into something that shifts your direction, opposition does not remain passive. It becomes active. Not always in obvious ways, not always in dramatic forms, but in subtle, calculated patterns designed to do one thing: stop you from moving forward at the right time. God is revealing this to you now so you do not misinterpret what you are experiencing. Because if you misunderstand the resistance, you may respond incorrectly to it. You may think something is wrong. You may think you should step back. You may think you need more time. But in reality, the resistance is not a sign to retreat. It is a sign that you are close. Close to breaking the pattern. Close to stepping through the window. Close to aligning with what has already been prepared for you. And because of that, there's pressure. But here is where you must be careful. The enemy's strategy is not always to confront you directly. It is to redirect you, to pull your attention away just enough, to create doubt just strong enough, to introduce hesitation at the exact moment action is required. And the way this shows up in your life is often subtle. It shows up as overthinking, as second-guessing what you already know, as feeling tired right when you need to be alert, as questioning yourself when clarity was already present, as returning to old habits right when new awareness is forming. These are not random reactions. They are interruptions. Interruptions designed to delay your response. Because delay is often more effective than denial. If you are delayed long enough, you will miss the timing without realizing it. And that is the goal. Not to stop you completely, but to slow you down just enough. This is why you must stay aware. Because what you are feeling right now is not just internal. It is influenced. Not controlled, but influenced. And the moment you recognize that, you regain your position. God is saying, "My child, do not confuse resistance with a reason to stop. Recognize it as a reason to stand firm. Because what is happening around you is not stronger than what is within you. But it can feel that way if you lose focus. If you start reacting instead of remaining grounded. If you start questioning instead of trusting what has already been revealed. This is why your awareness is your protection. Because once you see the strategy, it loses its power over you. Once you recognize that the doubt is not coming from clarity, you stop entertaining it. Once you see that distraction is pulling you away, you stop following it. Once you understand that hesitation is being introduced, you choose to move anyway. And that is where everything shifts. Because the strategy only works if it goes unnoticed. But now you see it. You see how timing, distraction, and hesitation have been working together. You see how patterns tried to repeat themselves right when they were about to break. You see how your attention was being pulled away at the most critical moments. And because you see it, you can respond differently. This is not about fighting something external. It is about refusing to be moved internally, refusing to go back into the same patterns, refusing to delay what you already know needs to happen, refusing to let distraction take priority over alignment. Because the moment you make that decision, the strategy fails. Not because it disappears, but because it no longer controls your response. And that is the key. You do not need everything around you to change. You need your response to change. Because your response determines your direction. And your direction determines whether you step into alignment or remain in delay. So do not be surprised by the resistance. Do not be discouraged by it. Recognize it. Understand it. And move forward anyway. Because what comes next will require you to act, not just with awareness, but with intention. Type "I will not be distracted" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 6666 is now activated around your protection and clarity. As you recognize the resistance and choose to move forward anyway, understand this: every time light overcomes confusion, another soul is brought closer to clarity. When you support this mission, you are not simply giving. You are sowing into a movement that breaks distraction and restores direction in lives that are on the edge of missing their moment. The word declares, "Those who sow in tears shall reap in joy," and your seed becomes a living stream that reaches hearts in their most critical hour. I feel this strongly. This is your moment to act with intention, not hesitation. When you give through Super Thanks, with a PayPal link in the description, you are stepping into alignment with something bigger than yourself, becoming a vessel through which truth continues to flow. This is not a transaction. It is a prophetic action that releases impact beyond what you can see. And I declare over you now that every seed you release will return as clarity, favor, and open doors in your life. Step forward and sow now with purpose and faith. Now everything becomes clear. Because awareness without response changes nothing. You have heard the warning. You have recognized the pattern. You have seen the distraction. You have understood the timing. But now comes the part that determines everything: what you do next. God is not asking you to wait. He is not asking you to overthink. He is not asking you to gather more information or search for more confirmation. He is asking you to respond immediately. Because this moment is not about preparation anymore, it is about action. There is something already placed in your awareness that requires your response. Something you have been thinking about, something you have been delaying, something you already know needs to shift. And the reason this message feels so direct is because God is not introducing something new. He is calling you to act on what has already been revealed. You already know where the misalignment is. You already know what needs to be released. You already know what you have been avoiding. And the longer you delay it, the heavier it becomes. God is saying, "My child, do not wait for a better time. This is the time." Because action taken in alignment carries power. But action delayed loses momentum. This is why so many people remain stuck, not because they do not know what to do, but because they postpone doing it. They wait for the right feeling. They wait for certainty. They wait for everything to make perfect sense. And in that waiting, the moment passes. But you are not being called to wait. You are being called to move. This does not mean rushing blindly. It means responding intentionally. It means taking the step that is already clear to you. For some of you, that step is internal. It is a decision you must make within yourself. A line you must draw. A realization you must accept without continuing to question it. Because clarity has already been given, and continuing to doubt it only delays your movement. For others, that step is external. is something you must change, something you must stop, something you must start, something you must walk away from, something you must confront within your own behavior, your own patterns, your own choices. And you already know what it is. That is why this moment feels intense. Because deep down, there is no confusion left. Only decision. And decision is what creates movement. God is not asking you to figure everything out at once. He is asking you to take the first step now. Because the first step is what shifts your position. And once your position shifts, everything else begins to unfold differently. Clarity becomes stronger. Direction becomes clearer. Momentum begins to build. But none of it happens if the first step is not taken. This is why hesitation is so dangerous in this moment. Because hesitation keeps you in place. And staying in place is the very thing that have been keeping the pattern alive. God is breaking that now, but you must participate. You must choose to move differently, to respond instead of delay, to act instead of overthink, to trust what has already been shown instead of searching for more signs. Because more signs are not what you need. You already have enough. What you need is movement. And that movement does not have to be dramatic. It just has to be real. It has to be intentional. It has to come from a place of clarity, not confusion. God is not asking you to prove anything. He is asking you to align, to bring your actions into agreement with what you already know. Because when your actions align with your awareness, everything begins to shift. But when your actions remain disconnected from your awareness, nothing changes, even if you understand everything clearly. This is the moment where understanding must become action, where awareness must become movement, where clarity must become decision. And the longer you delay that, the more you risk slipping back into the same cycle you were just shown. So do not overcomplicate this. Do not make it harder than it is. You already know what needs to be done. And now, you are being asked to do it. Because what comes next will reveal the cost of ignoring this moment, and why this decision carries more weight than you realize. Type "I move now" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 7777 is now activated around your decisions and direction. Now listen, because this is the part many people try to avoid. The cost. Not the fear-based version of it. Not exaggerated consequences meant to scare you. But the real, spiritual reality of what happens when a moment like this is ignored. Because every decision carries direction. And every direction carries outcome. If you respond, you move forward. If you ignore, you remain where you are. Or worse, you drift further from alignment without even realizing it. God is not trying to take something from you. But ignoring this moment can cost you what was meant to be released through it. That is the truth. You are not just choosing whether to act or not act. You are choosing whether to align or delay. And delay always has a cost. It may not show up immediately. In fact, at first, everything may seem the same. You may go back to your routine. You may tell yourself, it wasn't that serious. You may convince yourself that you still have time. But slowly things begin to shift. Not dramatically, subtly. Clarity begins to fade. That strong sense of knowing you had becomes weaker. The urgency you felt disappears. The awareness you had becomes less sharp. And before you realize it, you are no longer in the same position you were when the moment first came. You have moved, but not forward. You have drifted. And drifting is dangerous because it feels passive, but it creates distance. Distance from clarity. Distance from alignment. distance from what was meant to guide you. This is how opportunities are missed, not through rejection but through neglect. God is saying to you, my child, ignoring this moment does not leave you unchanged. It moves you away from what was prepared for you. There are things that were meant to be released through your obedience in this moment. Peace that was waiting on your decision. Clarity that was waiting on your action. Direction that was waiting on your response. And if you ignore it, those things are delayed, not taken away forever, but postponed. And sometimes that delay creates frustration you cannot explain. You start to feel stuck again. You start to feel like nothing is moving. You start to question why things are not changing. But the answer traces back to a moment like this. A moment where alignment was offered and not received. This is why this is serious. Because the cost is not always obvious in the beginning. It reveals itself over time, in the form of repetition, in the form of delay, in the form of feeling like you are moving, but not progressing. And the most difficult part is realizing later that you felt something important and did not act on it. That realization carries weight, not because you cannot recover, but because you understand that it did not have to be that way. God does not want you to experience that again. That is why this message is direct. That is why it is clear. That is why it is not leaving room for interpretation. Because you are not being left unaware. You are being given a choice with full understanding. To align or to delay. And the difference between those two paths is not small. It is the difference between stepping into what has been prepared or remaining in what you have already outgrown. There is also something deeper you must understand. Ignoring this moment does not just affect what you gain. It affects what you carry. Because when alignment is delayed, unnecessary weight remains. Emotional weight, mental weight, situational weight that was meant to be released. And carrying what should have been released makes everything heavier moving forward. That is why things begin to feel more difficult than they should. Not because life is meant to be hard, but because what was meant to be removed is still being carried. This is the hidden cost. Not loss in the dramatic sense, but weight in the subtle sense. And over time, that weight builds, until you realize you are tired, not because of what is ahead, but because of what you never let go. God is trying to prevent that. He is trying to remove what is unnecessary now, so you do not carry it into your next season. But that removal requires your response. You must choose to release, to act, to align. Because if you ignore this moment, you are choosing to carry forward what you were meant to leave behind. And that is a cost you do not need to pay. So do not take this lightly. Do not assume it will not matter. Because it does. More than you realize. And what comes next will reveal what is waiting for you if you choose to respond instead of ignore. Type "I choose alignment" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 8888 is now activated around your path and purpose. Now shift your focus, because everything you've heard so far was not meant to leave you in tension. It was meant to bring you into alignment with what is waiting on the other side of your response. Because there is another side to this moment. Not just the cost of ignoring it, but the power of obeying it. God is not only warning you because something can be lost. He is calling you because something can be released. And what is waiting for you is not small. It is not distant. It is not something you have to struggle to reach. It is already prepared. But it is waiting on your alignment. God is saying, my child, if you respond now, you will step into what I have already made ready for you. This is what many people misunderstand. They think obedience is about effort. They think it is about proving something. But true alignment is not about striving. It is about stepping into what is already positioned for you when you move at the right time, and when you do, things begin to shift. Not in a forced way, not in a way that feels unnatural, but in a way that feels clear. Suddenly, decisions that felt heavy become simple. Situations that felt confusing begin to make sense. Direction that felt uncertain becomes steady. Because when you align, clarity follows. And with clarity comes peace. Not temporary relief, not emotional distraction, but a steady, grounded sense of knowing that you are moving in the right direction. This is what hath been missing in certain areas of your life. Not effort, not ability, but alignment. And the moment you respond to what God is asking of you now, that alignment is restored. And when it is restored, momentum begins. You start to move forward without feeling like you are forcing every step. Things begin to open. Not because you chased them, but because you positioned yourself correctly. This is the difference. You do not have to fight for what is already prepared. You have to align with it. And that is what obedience does. It positions you. There are things that have been delayed that will begin to move. There are answers that will become clear. There are situations that will shift, not because they suddenly changed, but because your position within them has changed. God is not only changing what is around you, He is changing how you stand within it. And that changes everything. Because once you are aligned, you are no longer reacting. You are moving with direction. You are no longer uncertain. You are steady. You are no longer circling. You are advancing. This is the promise. Not that everything becomes easy, but that everything becomes clear. And clarity removes unnecessary struggle. Clarity removes hesitation. Clarity removes confusion. And once those are removed, movement becomes natural. This is why this moment matters so much. Because it is not just about avoiding delay. It is about activating progress. God is not asking you to give something up without purpose. He's asking you to release what is holding you back so you can step into what is already yours. And when you do, you will feel the shift. You will feel the difference. Not because everything changes instantly, but because you do. Your thinking changes. Your response changes. Your direction changes. And from that point forward, everything begins to unfold differently. This is what obedience unlocks. Not struggle, not pressure, but alignment. And alignment is what brings you into the flow of what has already been prepared for you. So do not hesitate. Do not overthink. Do not go back into delay after coming this far in awareness. Because you are closer than you realize. Closer to clarity. Closer to movement. Closer to stepping into what has been waiting for you. But it requires your response now. And what comes next will bring everything to its final point of decision. Type "I step into my promise" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 9999 is now activated around your life. Now this is it. This is not another part to think about later. This is not something to revisit when it feels more convenient. This is the moment everything has been leading to, the point where awareness must become decision. You have heard the message. You have recognized the pattern. You have felt the urgency. You have seen the distraction. You understand the timing. You know what is being asked of you. Now there is nothing left to explain. Only something left to choose. Because every moment like this comes down to one thing: decision. Not emotion. Not intention. Not what you plan to do later. But what you choose now. God is not forcing you. He is placing the moment in front of you and watching your response. He is saying, "My child, I have shown you enough. Now choose." And this choice is not small. It may look simple on the outside. It may not involve a dramatic action or a visible change that others can see immediately. But internally, spiritually, this decision carries weight, because it determines your direction from this point forward. If you choose alignment, everything you have heard begins to activate. Clarity strengthens. Direction stabilizes. Momentum builds. You begin to move forward not with confusion, but with certainty. Not with hesitation, but with intention. But if you choose to ignore this, if you return to delay, if you push this aside, if you tell yourself you will come back to it later, then everything remains where it is. Nothing shifts. Nothing breaks. Nothing changes. And you continue carrying what you were meant to release. You continue repeating what you were meant to end. You continue delaying what was ready to begin. That is the reality of this moment. And this is why it feels intense. Because deep down, you already know which direction you are meant to choose. This is not confusion. This is confirmation. You are not searching for the answer. You are standing in front of it. And the longer you stand without deciding, the more you feel the weight of it. Because your spirit is not designed to stay in indecision. It is designed to move in alignment. God is calling you out of hesitation, out of delay, out of overthinking, and into action. Not reckless action, not emotional reaction, but clear, intentional movement based on what you already know. This is your moment. Not tomorrow, not later. Now. Because this is where the shift happens. Not when everything feels perfect. Not when you feel completely ready. But when you choose to move despite hesitation. When you choose alignment over comfort. When you choose clarity over delay. This is where cycles end. This is where direction changes. This is where everything begins to move differently. And you will feel it. You will feel the release. You will feel the clarity. You will feel the shift in your spirit that tells you you responded when it mattered. This is what separates those who remain stuck from those who move forward. Not luck, not timing alone, but response. And right now you are being given the opportunity to respond. So do not let this moment pass. Do not treat it as something ordinary, because it is not. It is a turning point, a defining moment, a line between what within what comes next, and you are standing directly on it. Choose alignment. Choose movement. Choose now. Type "I choose now" in the comments if you receive this message. Blessing code 1212 is now activated around your life. As you step into this moment of decision, understand this truth. Every time you act in obedience, you become a vessel through which God reaches someone else who is still waiting for their moment of clarity. This mission is not about a platform. It is about souls being awakened at the exact second they need it most. The word declares, "Give, and it shall be given unto you. Pressed down, shaken together, and running over." And right now that promise is alive, speaking directly into your obedience. I feel this deeply. This is your moment to move, not just in decision, but in impact. When you sow through Super Thanks or the PayPal link in the description or QR code, you are releasing a seed that becomes light in someone else's darkness, a message in someone else's confusion, a turning point in someone else's life. This is not a donation. It is a divine response that aligns you with heaven's work in motion. And I declare over you now that as you give, doors will open, clarity will increase, and your path will be established with precision. Act now. Step into this flow and release your seed with purpose.